"Bionicle is my childhood," said every kid growing up in the 2000s. I mean, we've all seen these guys in some form since they debuted in the 2000s, and they have left a massive impact since their debut. During a time when LEGO was struggling financially, they released a line of buildable action figures called Bionicle, which you assembled yourself. These toys are just awesome. Not only could you collect the Bionicles, but you could also create your own heroes from the toys, combining different parts together to make something out of your imagination. Along with these toys, there was a story to build interest around them. The one who created the story of the Bionicles through the books that I read all the time as a kid was Greg Farshtey, who also wrote many Ninjago comics and other books. He is also the one responsible for the world building and lore that makes Bionicle so good. Bionicle itself was created by Christian Faber, who came up with the initial ideas of the Toa on an island. And man, did they go above and beyond. The lore of Bionicle is so expansive, with deep history and lore revolving around these LEGO toys. It's so amazing. I'm not even kidding around. They rival Transformers with the deep lore and history. So with the success of the toys and books comes movies, which LEGO wanted to make. The project was first proposed in 2001 during the original run of the Bionicle toy line. LEGO got offers from many different studios, but decided to develop the movie themselves to keep creative control, which I can respect. Production began in 2002 and was released in 2003 on home video, and it was pretty darn good for a first-time animated movie. But how does the movie fare 22 years later? Yeah, I'm making you feel old with this one. We are going to look at this movie today, and with that, I am Rocko from Reamlore, and let's dig into Bionicle: The Mask of Light. Also, consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. We open with narration from Taraga Vakama, played by Christopher Gaze, telling us about the way of the Bionicle. All of this is backed by temple blocks representing the characters in the story, and I'm just gonna read it to you worse than Chris because I don't have a buttery voice like him. "In the time before time, the Great Spirit descended from the heavens, carrying we, the ones called the Matoran, to this paradise. We were separate without purpose, so the Great Spirit illuminated us with the three virtues: unity, duty, and destiny. We embraced these great gifts, and in gratitude we named our island home Matanui, after the Great Spirit himself. But our happiness was not to last, for Matanui's brother, the Makuta, was jealous of these honors and betrayed him, casting a spell on Matanui, who fell into a deep slumber. The Makuta was free to unleash his shadows, and unleash them he did." Well, that's a flip on the classic great evil was sealed away but is coming back now. Evil showed up, defeated good, and now is going to run wild. Also, the Makuta here in the temple block form looks incredibly terrifying with the black and red smoke. We truly open with a voice burned into everyone's memories: "Takua!" Yes, this is Jala, played by Andrew Francis, calling out for his friend Takua, which he does a lot. And to be honest, it never really bothered me that much as a kid, but others have told me it haunts their dreams. We then do see Takua, played by Jason Mikas, with his pet crab Puku, hoping to get across a lava lake to get a stone. The reason he's doing this is because he is a chronicler, always looking for more stories to write about. Jala yells at Takua saying that they need to be preparing for the Koli match, but Takua wants to grab the stone. After he does, the entire cavern starts to collapse, causing the stone to fall in the lava, when it popped back up as a golden mask, shining light onto Takua. These masks are used by the Toa to give them superpowers, although at this point in the series they had acquired the last of their masks, so there shouldn't be any more. This is something to note: this movie actually takes place during the story of the Toa of this generation, not the beginning. Seems strange, but that's just where the toys were at. Takua pulls the mask out of the lava when suddenly a big wave of lava charges at him. He throws the mask to Jala, but as he does, the mask stops glowing. Takua's bright idea to escape the lava wave is to surf it on his shield, but it is basically like a wakeboard to a monster wave. This is when Toa Tahu of Fire shows up. It's so awesome, and he rides the wave off of a lava fall. Scott McNeil is playing Tahu, the Toa of Fire, as well as voicing Onua, Toa of Earth. He has also voiced a bunch of other characters from Transformers Beast Wars, fun fact for you. Just before they fall, however, Tahu jabs his swords into the rocks to stop their fall and protects them with his energy shield. They reunite with Jala, and Tahu gets a look at the mask they found. He says take it to Taraga Vakama after they've won the Koli match. Priorities. We then meet Taraga Vakama, who is announcing to the stadium about how great the Toa of the Six Elements are, and basically giving a prayer to the Great Spirit. He is also joined by not only the Taragas of Water and Rock, but also Toas Gali and Pohatu. Kathleen Barr plays Gali, Toa of Water, and Trevor Duvall plays Pohatu, Toa of Stone. I should note that the Taragas are basically the elders, while the Toa are the protectors. It's clear that Tahu and Gali don't like each other that much, you know, fire and water, and they're betting their team will win the game. Taraga Turaga Vakama dedicates the field to the Great Spirit and his virtues. Spoilers, Motunui is actually a giant robot, and to be honest, I am all for a religion that worships a giant robot as God. All hail the Great Spirit. The Coley match starts with the two members of the Rock, Fire, and Water tribes in the match. The game is basically like field hockey, where they fight over a ball with these sticks and try to get the ball into the other team's goals. One member on the field, the other member being the goalie. And other than that, I'm pretty sure anything goes in this game. By the way, yes, this is way better than Quidditch, although to be honest, it's not a high bar. The game goes up until nightfall. Takua tries out his new move to win the match, like a flip into the air to score, but it doesn't work and he almost kills the elders. Because of that, the Water Tribe were able to pick up the win. One member of the Water Tribe, Holly, played by Chiarazani, was also flirting with Jala during the match, so that's something, not a total loss, Jala. During the bow, the Mask of Light drops out of Jala's bag and falls in front of Takua, which shines on him. Takua tries to get rid of it though and tilts it to shine on Jala. Later, Turaga Nakama, played by Leslie Ewan, is reading the inscription on the mask and determines that it is in fact the Great Mask of Light. You spent an hour reading it and all you came up with is, it's light? Hey, this is a bottle here. I should read the inscription to see if it's the bottle of water. I kid, of course, because the bigger bombshell here is that the mask will be worn by the seventh Toa, the Toa of Light. Legends say there will be a seventh Toa who will bring light to Motunui. Tahu says they should prepare for his arrival, but the Turaga says he won't just appear like the other Toa did, he must be found. The Mask of Light chose who will deliver it, and everybody thinks that because the light was on Jala, that Jala must deliver the mask, even though Jala knows it was shining on Takua. Takua knows this too, but doesn't want the responsibility, so he pawns it off on Jala. Jala has no choice and takes the mask, but also volunteers Takua to chronicle for him. Tahu meanwhile questions why the seventh Toa is showing up now when at this point in the story all of the Makuda's forces have been defeated. Gali goes to meditate, or nap, I can't really tell, but she notices there is a seventh star in the sky, the ones representing the Toa. We then meet the Makuda, and my Motunui is he creepy. Lee Talker playing the Makuda, giving this creepy monster a creepy voice. He speaks in a low, slow voice as he talks about the seventh Toa's arrival. He then just pulls a snake out of the ground, saying he must keep his brother asleep while he unleashes his monsters, the Rokshi. I cannot begin to convey how creepy he is. You just have to see this for yourself. I also love how he looks, just a Frankensteining of many different Bionicles fused together. Jala and Takua are about to leave as Turaga Vakama and Holly see them off. They ride on top of Puku while Vakama says, "Don't tomfool around, this is important, you idiots," and tells them the mask will lead the way as it shines in the direction they need to go. Gali meanwhile is woken up from her nap or meditation when the Rokshi pop out of the ground to attack her. I love the design and aesthetic of these guys, monsters with a hunchback and a weird snake head. And this is where we have to mention the fight scenes in the movie. Mainly that they're non-existent. Apparently, LEGO were afraid kids watching this would emulate the violence, so it's just a lot of Dragon Ball Z energy blasts, shields, and running away. It's okay, but it's not good either. I mean, for Motunui's sake, the Toa literally have swords. Let them use them. The Rokshi force Gali into the water, which fool them into thinking she's dead before moving on to the lava village. Gali is able to swim faster than they could fly somehow, and alerts everyone to sound the alarm and lock down the village. It doesn't work as the Rokshi blast Tahu, knock Gali back and break through the walls to terrorize the Matoran. The Toa regroup and start evacuating the Matoran and Turaga. Tahu tries to fight, but his energy beams are not enough to stop the monsters as the poison one gets him pinned down. Gali tries to help but accidentally blasts Tahu, who got a poison scratch on his mask. Tahu manages to surf Gali out of the village as they and the Matoran watch as the village sinks into lava. Yeah, why did you build your village on top of lava? Tahu wonders why they didn't just kill everyone. They were definitely strong enough, but Vakama says they were seekers and they didn't find what they were looking for, the Mask of Light. Tahu wants to find Jala and Takua to help ensure their safety, but Gali says they should summon the other Toa for help, which he reluctantly agrees to with a green poison eye. Takua and Jala meanwhile are traveling through a forest, which Takua is not a big fan of. This sparks a conversation about what Takua's story is, since he's always looking for other stories, which he responds with he doesn't have a story, but Jala disagrees, saying we all have a destiny. This is when they are attacked by a robot bear. Jala tries to take him out but is unsuccessful. This is when vines shoot out and grab the bear. It was Toa Liwa, the spirit of air played by Dale Wilson. Jala pulls out a knife, but Liwa says there's no need since the bear was protecting his home and lets down the creature. He offers his help in the weirdest speech pattern ever. He legit says, and I'm just gonna read this to you, "If Toa Liwa helped on your search, may he be a spirit lift. Walk? Ha! No, never. If you ride with me, there'll be no foot walking, just air flying." Not exaggerating, that is word for word what he says, and we never learn why he talks like that. Liwa then summons a weird giant bird and they fly off but have to leave Puku behind and tell her to go home. That's kinda mean, but I think it's because they know it'll be dangerous. They reach the top of the icy mountains, but Liwa hears the drums echoing throughout the land, hearing that their village was destroyed by the Rakshi, the Makuda's sons. I am all for a communication system based on drums, by the way. Who needs email? Jala wants to go back, but Liwa says it's too late and the mask needs Jala. Jala protests, saying Takua should continue, but he is still refusing the mask. Liwa says it doesn't matter whose duty it is because we all have a duty to help each other. He has to leave to go to Jala's village and warn the other Toa and flies off. Jala and Takua continue on, but they run into some frozen monsters and meet Kopaka, the Toa of Ice, played by Michael Dobson, who has a cool Terminator eye. He's kind of the isolated Toa, feeling better when he is on his own freezing monsters and hasn't really heard of their mission. Tahu is also mourning the loss of his home. Tahu, maybe next time don't put your village on top of lava. That was a very big design flaw. He also snaps at Gali when she shows concern for a scratch when his village is gone, that he wasn't strong enough to defend it. Liwa, who arrives, says they must work together to stop the Rakshi, but Tahu just walks away from them. Back with Kopaka, he leads Jala and Takua to his village when suddenly they are attacked by the same Rakshi from before. He drops his shield and tells them to snowboard away, and he falls close behind with his sword/skis. The Rakshi blast Kopaka, knocking him out as Takua realizes they are after the mask, so he takes it and the shield into the icy river and tries to lure out the Rakshi. As the Rakshi recover, they are about to grab Takua, but Kopaka returns and freezes them in the river. I guess that's why he hangs around here. Freezing people is super easy. This is when Puku shows up, having walked through the jungle, and Kopaka walks off, wanting to check on his own village. Jala and Takua walk through the tunnel, but Takua breaks off when he saw some glowing plants, and this is when the Makuda calls out his name. And you all thought Jala calling out Takua would haunt your dreams. Makuda can talk through shadows. He knows Takua is afraid he won't find the seventh Toa, and that Jala will die because of him. Makuda says bring the mask to him and Jala will be spared, but Takua can't do it. Takua reunites with Jala and Puku and says he can't go on anymore. Jala is mad because this is Takua's duty he pawned off on him, but Takua is too afraid and ashamed to explain why. Jala says he won't give up though, that he will find the seventh Toa whether Takua is the herald or not. Makua is mad that Takua turned him down and that his sons are stuck in ice. So he creates some more and says he will use fear to turn the Toa against each other and stop the Matoran from awakening his brother. We see that Pohatu, the Toa of Stone, is meeting up with Onua, Toa of Earth. Seriously, they're like the same thing. Couldn't they have named one like the Toa of Lightning or the Toa of Nature? Why do you need two that are rock? These two are a couple of bros though, and Pohatu has news for the entire village, that the Mask of Light has been found, and that Jala and Takua are searching for the seventh Toa. This is when Takua shows up but is too ashamed to admit he abandoned his friend and says they got separated after they ran into the Rakshi. And this is when the new Rakshi show up to fight. Onua and Pohatu try to fight as the Matoran flee, but these Rakshi are too much for them with their evil powers. Takua looks back ashamed of what he's done, and with determination he rides Puku to fight the Rakshi. And as it turns out, the Rakshi are only after him, not the mask. Tahu then shows up, and how did he get here so fast? Well, I guess the Toa are the only people here with long legs. They do have a problem though, as the poison has finally reached Tahu's brain and he goes crazy and starts felling his fellow Toa who came to help. Takua has Puku scale the walls of the escape tunnel to get away from the Rakshi, but the monsters climb up after him. Fortunately, they are stopped by Onua and Pohatu dropping rocks on them. As they brofist though, Pohatu asks the question of how Onua was able to stop the ceiling from falling on them, which is when the ceiling fell on them. Tahu is also stopped by Kopaka, who returned to freeze Tahu, and he, along with Lewa and Gali, take him to safety. Takua also managing to escape and go find Jala. I just want to mention something real quick. If we're going over who has the best underrated animation studio, it has to go to Lego. Just look at any film or video game or animation they have done in the past, and it always looks amazing. You'll especially see that when we look at the next Bionicle movie. It's like watching an art piece. The Toa tie Tahu up, and by using all of their healing powers that they have, they get rid of the poison. This has affected Gali though, and asks Kopaka if they really are divided, but he left already, so that's a yes, Gali. I'm only kidding. We see why he left later, plus Tahu wakes up and thanks Gali for saving his life. Jala, meanwhile, is scaling a mountain and is about to fall when Takua and Puku show up to help him. They make up and continue the journey, Takua telling Jala that the Rakshi were after the herald, not the mask. They make it to the Great Temple, and while Takua is holding the mask, it shoots a beam of light at the temple. Just then, the new Rakshi show up to attack. This is when Takua also accepts that the mask chose him and that he is the herald, and now they need to run away right now. Just as they try to run though, the old Rakshi show up to cut them off. Just when they try to attack though, Tahu, Gali, and Liwa show up to defend them. They're not alone though, as Kopaka, Onua, and Pohatu pop out of the ground. Turns out that Kopaka went to dig them out of the tunnels and brought them here. And once again they fight. I've already mentioned this, they don't really fight, they just blast beams at each other and use force fields. But it's cool to see all 6 Toa together for the first time in the film, mixing and combining their powers to take out the Rockshi one by one. They managed to seal all but one of them in the glass/ice prisons. The one Rockshi in question attacks Takua and Jala and uses its powers to get the Makuta in his head again, but just as the Rockshi is about to kill Takua, Jala sacrifices himself. Jala says this was always his duty, to help Takua find his own story. This is where I have to note that throughout this whole movie, even though every other person's mask fit perfectly on their faces, Takua's always seemed off, like it didn't fit. Or rather that he was always meant to have a different one. The coolest moment in the movie happens when Takua puts on the Mask of Light, which transforms him into Takanuva, the Toa of Light. He easily takes out the last Rockshi and reveals his old mask underneath the temple statue. He takes his fallen friend home as the Makuta says all of this is about to end. While looking at Jala's mask, he wonders why his friend needed to die so he could figure out who he was. Fakama asks why he's looking for answers. The reason he went on that trip in the end was to figure out what his heart wanted, what his duty is. Takanuva swears that his friend's sacrifice will not be in vain, and his fellow Toa build him a motorcycle. Now those are some real brothers right there. Takanuva puts the snake that was in the Rockshi's head into the bike because it would return directly to him, when Holly shows up with Jala's mask and puts it on the front of his bike. Is that insensitive? Her justification is since Jala led him in the past, he will lead him more as his bike. What? The other Toa want to go as well to fight the Makuta, but Takanuva says his destiny is to defeat the Makuta, while theirs has always been to defend the people of this island, and that they need to gather everyone here. Takanuva goes into the depths of the underground pod racer style until he crashes into a wall. Holly then pops out of the bike with Jala's mask saying it's time someone was his chronicler. He agrees, but only if she stays in the back. He enters the Makuta's chamber and says he can no longer hide in shadow. Makuta says that he should run off like always, but Takanuva is done running and Matanui will be awakened today. He tells Holly to get everyone else and bring them down here. This is when we finally get a good look at the Makuta, and he is freaking huge. He's like 15 feet tall, he's so big. Now what does he do now that he has arrived with his mace, ready to finally vanquish his arch rival? Guess what happens next. Time's up, because there's no way you could have guessed what happens. The Makuta, the devil himself in this world's ideology, challenges Takanuva to a Koli match. Are you serious? If he wins, he gets the Mask of Light, and if Takanuva wins, he can try and free Matanui. Imagine that was the finale of any other movie. Imagine instead of the awesome climactic fight between Puss in Boots and Death, they just played ping pong. This is the absolute worst of the we can't show fights or violence nonsense. Now you could argue Makuta is just toying with him, given even if he wins, Takanuva can't wake up Matanui on his own, and he knows for a fact that Takanuva can't beat him in a fight, but still, it's ridiculous. It doesn't ruin the tension or make Makuta less threatening, he still is, trust me, but it is just so bizarre. I mean, maybe Makuta was just bored because he's been stuck working at home. While this whole thing is strange, it is a nice callback to the start of the film, and how Takanuva failed to win the game initially. Holly returns to the crowd of people and say that they are waking Matanui and that they must go, but one of the Turaga says if they go down there, they may never return. Holly says that while this island is a paradise and she loves her home, they owe it to Jala to awaken the Great Spirit. All hail Matanui. Back with the Koli match, Makuta just forgot about the rules and starts hurling silver balls at Takanuva. You're supposed to get the ball in the goal, man. You recommended this game. How do you not know the rules? This is when the people of Matanui show up and Takanuva says they will triumph, but Makuta says he will not let any of them return and seals the tunnel. Takanuva finally pulls off the spinning move he tried at the start of the movie and gets a direct hit onto Makuta, but he gets right back up while saying he does this to protect his brother. Sleep spares him pain, awake he suffers. Takanuva says he's not protecting his brother before he grabs him, takes off the Makuta's mask, and they both fall into the pool of water. What crawls out of it though is straight up an abomination of Matanui. They somehow fuse together to form this new being. Takakuta, Makanuva, it doesn't matter. Merging with the Mask of Light showed Makuta that his brother must be awakened. He lifts up the chamber to his brother's room and lets everyone go inside. He stops Holly though and somehow brings Jala back from the dead. Since when can either of them do that? I mean, I guess since Matanui created everyone because he's God, Makuta has a similar power, but it comes out of nowhere. Makuta is out of strength though, and the door crushes him, the Mask of Life being all that's left of either of them. Vakama then takes the mask and uses Jala, Holly, and the Mask of Light to wake up Matanui, which also revives Takanuva. Why did you even have him die there if you were going to bring him back instantly? Jala, I kind of understand since this is watched by kids and we need a happy ending, but why didn't you just have Takanuva defeat Makuta and they all go in the chamber? Anyways, the best friends reunite, they look out in the sky, and the Mask of Light points them towards Metro Nui, Vakama's old home, setting up the sequel/prequel. Now those of you watching are probably scratching your head asking if they awakened Matanui or not, and yes, they did. The Bionicle lore is kind of fuzzy at this point since there are only some books and a game depicting events between Mask of Light and the final film Legends of Bionicle, but apparently Matanui is a giant robot under the island and he woke up, destroying the landscape while being the new home for them. But don't take my word for it, I really don't know the lore super well. So what are the ratings for this? How do my rankings work? Well, there are 4 criteria for my ratings. First is characterization. How characters are depicted factors greatly into the ratings. If they are clearly defined and showcased, then they rank higher. Second is story. How the story progresses from start to finish factors into the ratings. If it's dynamic and interesting, it gets a high score. If it's plotting and boring, it gets a low score. Third is entertainment. How fun something is plays a big part. If you're not enjoying what you're watching, there's no point in viewing. Fourth is importance. How necessary is it for you to watch? In our new world of streaming and rewatching, there's too much to watch. If something is noteworthy, it gets a high score. If it's something you can live with missing, it gets a low score. They will be judged in 5s, 5 being the best and 0 being the worst. However, on certain occasions, if I think something is truly noteworthy, I will go above or below certain parameters. If I think something is exceptionally good, I will give it a 6 or higher. If I think something is exceptionally horrendous, I will go lower than 0. Characterization can get a 4. Everybody is characterized very well. The Toa show off how well their personalities bounce off each other even with the few screen time they have. And Jala and Takua are great together. The story is also a 5. The journey to find the 7th Toa just to find out Takua was the Toa himself is great. I just love the whole journey setup anyway. Entertainment gets a 5. It is so entertaining despite not having any real fight scenes. It is still fun to see them bounce off each other and fight each other with the beams and stuff. Importance also gets a 5. It is the first movie in the 4-part series, so it's important to see this, and it's the first Bionicle movie. You kind of have to. With all that said and done, I'd say this is a pretty good movie. Obviously the films got better and better from here, but this is a solid start. The visuals are good, the story and characters are engaging, and it's just a fun time. It's not perfect, as while the Toa are cool in this, we don't spend much time with them and they don't get much development. But the story isn't really about them, it's about Takua and Jala. Yes, this movie is cheap in some areas, but who cares? Visuals are still stunning. I will say the absence of fights really hurts the film, making some things awkward, and the ending is a bit strange, but all in all, it's a good flick. I also want to say what makes this really good. It doesn't talk down to kids watching. I feel like a lot of media, especially nowadays, that are made for kids, dumb things down or don't let them figure out things on their own, which I really don't like. Kids are a lot smarter than cartoon companies give them credit for. They are able to fully understand a full range of emotions. Bionicle has a respected lore, likable characters, and has a unique atmosphere and style which doesn't dumb down things for kids. And as I said before, the 3 sequels that follow this get even better as they go along. For movies that were just made to sell more toys, they went above and beyond to tell a great story, and I think that's really what Bionicle's legacy is going to be. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.